right. Hey, so appreciate everybody listening, being there, attending. I apologize for not being there. When this evolved, Keith ended up with a slot, and and I think he always has to kind of walk a line between commercialization and community, and tends to be on the side of community by and large. But so when he offered me this slot, I really didn't want to take advantage of it from a commercial standpoint. So I really tried to put together some new material for community. So that's where I'll start. And since I'm sharing the wrong screen, I'm going to you're going to look at the Windows border here for a bit. So anyway, to me, it's been I think of all the years I've been going at this, and I mean, it's just been light speed the last couple of years, just with 6E. I don't think I've ever seen this much change going on between 6 and then opening up the 6 gig spectrum and the new security stuff and all the issues of channel plans and channels and how you're going to manage that, and SSIDs, and we haven't even got to AFC yet, and then on top of it, the newer APs dragging in the backhaul requirements for NBASE-T and in particular PoE. So there's just a lot going on, but I just kind of want to boil it down to the basics. And so when I came into this, I thought, I'm going to talk about clients and APs and all that. And so, but at the end of the day, I went just for clients because there's plenty to talk about there. And in our parlance, and you've seen this occasionally, but in radio terms from the manufacturers, clients are stations. STAY is the acronym, and APs are MON, MON. So. And the reality is, in fact, it's kind of ironic that I was in Prague just pre-COVID, and I was kind of watching the Twitter feed, and Troy chimed in and said, "Hey, stations are like cats. You can't herd cats," and I think that with 6E has become even more difficult. So it's been around for a long time. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I've just observed here recently about how clients behave around 6E. And so I'm going to talk about rate behaviors, stickiness, and roaming. So first, let me say this: it seems like of late there's been this dog pile on data rates. That MCS is the answer to everything, and I get that, and I see the value in MCS, but the reality is, I deal in a world of rates, right? And so when I talk to customers, in fact, this is a major U.S. carrier. I work with their lab. They use a bunch of Etherscopes and for some of their qualification, and he's telling me about how the 5 he wants a feature in the Etherscope or the AirCheck G3 at this point, and it's about but we're talking about PHY rates and how user interfaces lie, and you just can't get a good read on it, and certainly we can see it in the in the decodes, and when I look at my technical documentation, it talks a lot about rates too, right? They're not really talking MCS. Rate seems to be the predominant term as I'm trying to understand, unravel anybody that's dealing with radios understands, what we're dealing with there. And another nice thing about rates is I can equate them to things like iPerf. So in other words, if I can connect at 1.2 gig, I'm expecting, if things are good, I'm expecting to see 4/5 of that, or more than 2/3 of that available as TCP bandwidth. So, and then even looking on our screens, right? As I look at my Android devices, I look at Windows, right? It's rates and rates and rates. So MTS is great, but rates are also sort of just a part of our culture, and so. So let me park rates for a second. I'll come back to that in a moment here. And the next thing I want to talk about is radios. I think oh gosh, what was it, maybe 18 months ago, when the AX210 first came out, and these little kits were available with antennas, because you needed 6 gig, right? And so we all rushed out, or some of us, the early adopters with the arrows in our back, maybe, ran out and grabbed an old laptop and jacked a 210 in there, and then immediately went into this driver hell, upgrade, downgrade, this side grade. It was just a mess. It was just really difficult to get good quality clients and APs for that matter. So look at the dog in the room. There we go. And so that's been a challenge, but at the end of the day, it's really it's kind of a 3-horse race right now, right? You in terms of client radios, and so you've got Broadcom and their 4389 stuff, right? And these are all the 6 gig, 160 megahertz wide. You can kind of see the banner specs here. They actually all look the same at this level. So you got Broadcom, you got Qualcomm. Let me back up. Broadcom is let's say what we're going to see in my S22 Ultra Samsung. Then you got Qualcomm. Qualcomm is actually 9600 series is what we put in the Etherscope and AirCheck, and then of course we got what we just talked about, Intel, and that now up to the 211, the AX211 gig module. So those are the 3 radios you kind of have to choose from. There's maybe some other second tier players, but those are really the big 3. And so after many issues, trials, tribulations, trying to resurrect a laptop with 6E, despite putting the external antennas, and I went into this whole quagmire of you need Windows 11, right, for full support and good driver support and all that, and so, of course, ironically, none of the laptops I have, even though being relatively high performing, will support Windows 11, right? So I'm kind of forced into getting a new laptop. So in fact, that's what happened. Got a new Latitude 5530, Windows 11. Here's the AX210 in there. In fact, it's sitting right here by my side. I'm going to show that in a moment in action. In fact, it's right here on an RDB. In fact, if we go here and there, we'll see that it's in fact connected to 6 gig, and we'll go to the little information guy, and there he is, right? So that gives you a sense that he's there and alive. I tell you, it's just been a struggle all along on Windows to understand what's really going on with rates. I think Seven Signals deals with this too, probably on their Windows agent, right? Just what APIs are available, how good is the information, how often does it update, things like that. But that screen I was showing, the properties screen, it's just miserable. It doesn't update. You got to go all the way back out and come back in to see things change, and even things I'd like to see on the same screen here, like the RSSI, are missing, right? So I went out and tried to find an app. In fact, looked at a couple of different apps in the Windows Store, and Wi-Fi Analyzer was one of them, and they all brought their own things. In fact, here you can kind of see the bandwidth not detectable. Apparently, getting the channel width or the AP width is not a thing. It's got the asterisk there, and I just see goofy things, channel 0, and such, and so none of those really bared much fruit. But to take a half step back, there really are a variety of rates or ways to think about rates, right? And so so here I've got my Extreme 5010, right? And I know Dave's in the room. Hi, Dave. At 6 gig, they talk about 160 megahertz wide. Here's their maximum throughput, right? And this is 4x4. But the reality is, the other interesting thing is, if I roll back 5-10 years, we were using the same chipsets in our testers that could be used in APs. So if you look at our previous generation products, they were 4x4s. Even when we launched Etherscope non-6E, it was a 4x4 Broadcom radio, right? And it seems like as 6E came in, the market kind of bifurcated, right? Now you've got the AP chipsets, and they're all, going after 8x8 and all the things that you need to do as an AP in terms of managing the air. And then the clients have all gone to 2x2, right? Even if you buy the most awesome MacBook out there. So you've got this max rate. Then in our product we've got the rates and capabilities. We show this on every BSSID, and here we see the streams and the max MCS, and but this rate calculation is actually based on the minimal guard interval. And so, because another interesting thing is right now we went from having almost a Boolean, right, for short guard interval to 4 different guard intervals, right? And this is just one of the many complexities. But now you got 0.4, 0.8, 1.6, 3.2 microseconds that you got to contend with, and the thing is we've got these decades of algorithms and code and architectures that have been built up on let's say a Boolean, is it short or not? And all of a sudden, you have these all these rates. It needs to be enumerated now, and so and then you need to chase down all the places in the code that happens, and because there's things over on the monitor side, there's things over on the station side, and all that, right? So there's a lot going on, but and that's just one of the many things that have been added on 6E, but so here we show basically, well, with the minimum guard interval in 2x2, we could achieve this rate. Now when you connect, and I'll show some of this live in a second, then we're saying, hey, right now at this moment, this is our connection log. We're channel 197 AX, 160 watt MCS, 2 streams, max rate. Now we're showing the actual rate that we're going to run based on the actual guard intervals that are being used. And then you see it's a little bit slower, and then of course, as we're running, and this is our auto test screen, connection screen, if you will, then there's the actual rate that's going on, that's happening during the run, right? And so and if you click on this card, we trend 5 different key stats over up to 4 hours, and in fact here you can see the rate jumping around, and as well as utilization, retries. Right, here's a couple speed tests thrown in, and here I am moving the client around signal. So I kind of got fascinated with some of the rate stuff, and in particular, how do clients determine what rate to run at, right? And so, because I was observing this pattern where it's like a little test unit. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna try pumping my rate up a little bit, and then I'm gonna back down. And I'm gonna try it again, and then I'm gonna go to that rate. And it just sort of stair steps up. But what really kind of surprised me was, this takes a long time. This can take minutes, right? And some of it depends on your traffic. But even with the nominal background traffic and things like that, right? It can take minutes for a client to achieve its max rate again. And so, in fact, I was walking the dog yesterday, and it kind of struck me. It's interesting, because if you think about it, at the physical layer, you've got best effort, right? It's just stuff flying in the air, but then you get to the data link layer, where we are now you've got a mechanism for adaptive rates, right? And then you get to the network level. Now we're kind of running UDP again, best effort, right? Streaming, packets lost, it's gone forever. Then you go to the next level, we have reliability again. We have TCP and its retry mechanism. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that you kind of got this is best effort retry kind of an architecture going on here. So, but I'm gonna focus mostly down here. So now last time I saw some client testing, it was actually Fernay, right? So I thought I gotta channel my inner Fernay, and he had this very elaborate setup, and so I watched that video for looking for some inspiration, but it was more sophisticated I could do at this moment. But this morning, I was, as I was setting up the conference with Ben, here he's in the back of the room going, oh gosh, I got to deal with this, remote jackwagon now. There was Fernie in the same vest, right? So I was inspired by that moment. So, but in fact, I'm going to kind of go with Rick Wakeman this morning, and because it's going to feel like this as I'm trying to do the live demo. So let me do the setup, right? Keith would always insist that we show the setup. So here I am running my really the best AP in my stable, right? It's Extreme's latest and greatest, and I've got two different air checks running. One's going to run as monitoring the air, the other one's going to be connected. And then I've also got my, representing Broadcom, I've got my Samsung. Representing Intel, I've got my Dell. And in fact, if I were to take my G3 and look at my SSID, look right here, within inches of the AP, you'll see that, minus 15 dB on channel 11, 19, 34 dB on 197. And then since I'm not going to get up and walk around, within arm's range, but through, let's say, two pieces of particle board, I'm going to take the units and move them down here to show you the rate adaptation, both going down and back. And when you're down here, you can see that, well, let's see, in the 2.4 gig band, I've got 18 dB of drop. There's 20 dB in the 5 gig, and there's a whopping, what was that, 26 dB in the 6 gig band. So that's the setup. So let me go over to monitor mode first. So monitor mode, our goal is to let you free associate, because the sense is that at any given time, you're going to approach a problem from a different vector, right? Sometimes the SSID, sometimes the physical AP, sometimes you're thinking about a channel or a particular client or BSSID, and we allow you to enter on any of those axes and then just connect to any other ones. So I'm going to show you a little bit about monitor mode here. So let me get rid of that. And so here is my guy, and he's scanning along and monitoring, and for us, monitor mode is largely represented by this in our Wi-Fi app, right? And this is where we show you the channels, and here's our and on any of these graphs, and we've also added a lot of problem detection around the 6 gig band. In fact, we look at the BSSIDs we're seeing in the country codes, kind of take the majority, and anything that's outside the norm will report as a problem, right? So if you end up with a out of region AP somehow in your zone, and I've seen that, right? I've seen a Japanese hotspot at DIA, flag that, trigger that. So anyway, but here's 6, here's 6E, and our new map there. Here's our overlap map. I actually had to turn off some APs, but we added this notch here recently to show the primary, right? Kind of handy just for showing. This guy's on channel 2 and he's 40 wide, right? And so, and so you can kind of go through the channel space here. Here's another trouble zone here, and actually, ironically, I didn't force these. This is just as we know the world we live in. Somebody props up a hotspot and suddenly you've got problems. So I'll come in, I'll look at, let's say, SSIDs, and here's my SSIDs. Here's a guest guy running OWE and such. And then APs will of course show you the physical APs, and the AP I'm going to focus on right now is going to be this guy right here, my Extreme. I'm running 4 different BSSIDs on him, and he's sitting over here next to me. And so, and we also, now a lot of action actually is at the BSSID level, because that's what's really doing the transmission. And so, so here you can see I've got 21 BSSIDs, and in fact, another interesting problem that we automatically run for you is just because there's a lot of problem detection we've added under the hood, and there's certainly more to be added, right? We should have a problem for, hey, this guy isn't on a primary scanning channel, isn't appropriate for 6 gig or whatever. But let me pull this over and let me go in here, and I'm going to pop into this guy, and I'm going to force an event. You know, what I find in the wild is that our RRM, radio resource management, is just kind of amok. And the reality is it's a lot, right? Because people come in with their phones and fire up hotspots and it's just a very dynamic environment, even in semi-controlled environments, right? I go into let's say a Walmart, but then there's those little stores in the front, right? Then you find there's the subway, you know, running on a weird channel with that, you know, 40 meg wide, just kind of almost what I showed you before, channel 2, 40 meg wide, you know, just taking out most of the band. And so, but I'm going to flip this guy over here, and let me just take him off 153 and take him over to 48 and save him. And we'll give him a second to get his marbles. And then in the perfect world, let's see here, one of these, I did save that. One of these should, there it is. Okay, so then of course, you know, when you're looking at all your BSSIDs, let me swipe over here. We'll go yellow, right? And in fact, if I were to zoom in on that, it would say, hey, this guy on 48 was previously on 153. And so we're tracking like the last 5 channels that we saw BSSID on. And you know, in fact, when I was at WLPC in Phoenix in the spring, in the hotel room, I mean, it was just constant. It just our queues filled up, right? It was just constant channel changing on the in the I think it was the Ruckus environment there at the hotel. But here you can see, you know, we were on 153, went to 48. So and maybe my point is there's, you know, we tried to really come up with some features and things that'll help you out, because to me, channel thrashing, right, in the perfect world would never happen, right? The APs would all come up according to the channel plan that you designed in your planner, and oh, this is what a beautiful clean world. No, really not true, right? The RRM is going to take over, and BSSIDs are going to be flipping all over the place. So let's see. So we got that. We got. Let me get back over here, so I throw this guy over here so I can remember what else is here. But what's kind of cool is in the BSSIDs is this filter sort mechanism, and so if I come in here and I say, hey, look, I only want to look at AX, and we show you an inventory of what we have. We don't show you everything that can exist, but we say, hey, we've seen all this in the air, so let's say I want to filter. I only want to look at AX stuff, right? Well, the minute I went to AX, here's our filter chip, then oh wow, it's running in 3 bands, and it's running at 4 different widths. Well, what's happening in the 6 gig band? Oh, it's only running 160, right? What's happening in the 5 gig band? And we take away 6. Oh, it's running 20 and 40, right? So you can see there's even a lot of diagnostics even in the filter thing, but I can fairly quickly get down to the guys that are running in AX in the 5 gig band, and then you couple that with the sorts, and this is where we continue to add, right? TX power. I love the QBSS stuff because it's the APs telling us what they're seeing, right? And so you can walk into any location, even if you don't have any credentials or anything. And I know there's, oh yeah, everybody's got their own QBS algorithm, but gives you a pretty good sense of where the action is, right? Which channels are really getting heavily utilized. And so, but I could come in here and let me just sort by channel widths, let's say, and there they all are. There's my 80s and my 20s. Come back in here and let me open this up for you, and In fact, I'll leave it with AX, but now you can see I've got 160s, 80s. I'll flip the sort order. There's some 20s, right? So you get a sense for some of the power here in the BSSID list, but this progressive filtering feature. So the other thing I want to show was you see our icon set here change, right? So and that's because of this incredible complexity called reduced neighbor reports, right? And it's still a little fuzzy exactly how clients are going to discover what's going on in the 6 gig band without physically scanning each channel. But you know, and I've got a pile of APs back here, right? And I got one that just decided to do fills and nobody else is, and even the R&Rs, we've seen a lot of issues there with interpretation of how that should work. But basically, if I look at let's see here, let me go to this guy. Yeah, so let's go to, you know, where I want to be here. Let me let's see here. Where is? All right, let's try this guy. So I'm looking at. You know, let me start at the base. Let me go to. Let's do this. Let's go to actually BSSIDs, and let me just get down to the 2.4 gig stuff. You know, it's kind of interesting because you know, even with 21 BSSIDs, you kind of end up swimming in it, and that's where the filters are nice to hone down your world. And so let's take this guy. So here I am, ironically, automatically positioned on channel 7, 40 megahertz, no doubt, and nope, not 20 megahertz. But so here's a guy on channel 7. He's putting out this reduced neighbor report transmitted, right? And so when we see these, and this is what a client will do, right? We then go, hey, let's show you what's in there, right? So we're decoding the packet. So this is basically saying, hey, we're on 2.4, but there's some extra information. Then there is also this beacon in the 2.4 gig band is carrying this other information, and so here it's telling me about that he's running 6 gig. With this SSID, he's running a guest guy up in 6 gig with OWE, and there's some hidden, probably meshy thing, right? That seems to come with all this Resi stuff these days. So you kind of get a sense for the R&R stuff and some of that. Showed you channel changes, and you know, another thing, of course, it's kind of nice is let me unfilter that. In fact, let's get back to looking at 6 gig only. All right, so another nice thing, of course, is I can come in here and one of my favorite workflows is you know, when you're looking at anything, and you can do this remote, right? It can be from across the country. One of the nice things about the G3 compared to the G2 is we have a real management plane with a separate radio. So and you can get to that through Link Live or through VNC. But I can just come in here and say capture, and we'll automatically set up the BSSID in the channel and the width. I can start it, and let's say snag a few frames, and then I can push it up to Link Live, and then I can now channel my inner Peter Mackenzie, who I just heard a few minutes ago. And there we are, 6:21 my time. There's my capture, export down and into Wireshark, right? Just that easy. So kind of a cool workflow. All right, so enough about monitor. Let's get back to the program here. Now let's talk about station. And so I'm going to bring in my other guy here. Let's see. And okay, so let's leave this monitor guy because I'm going to actually use both of them at the same time, as you'll see. And let's leave him over here, and I'll just get back him just back here looking at SSIDs. Okay, so let's take this guy here, and there we go. Over here. There he is. Okay, so auto test. Auto test is our station mode, and Now let me stick with just that for a sec. Sorry. You know, and this is our layer 1 through 7 thing, right? And so it's everything from how I'm connected and what speeds I'm at, and we're tracking roams and channel information, what AP I'm connected to, DHCP, DNS, gateway, and then you get into service testing. You can add whatever you want here, right? And so if I come into Google, for example, and we do a full EURT breakdown, right? Because they're going to say, oh, Wi-Fi is the problem, but it's going to turn out that it's really the server took a long time to utter the first bytes on a data start, or the DNS server is running slow, right? It's going to probably be, you know, more likely than not, hey, Bernie, it's going to be you know, something in a lot of cases other than Wi-Fi. But so there's our station mode, and one of the nice things is you can take these profiles that you build up and force them into anything. So here I'm saying, so I've got one SSID that's running across all 3 bands, and I've forced that to, and on our side, right, in the profile, I say, hey, no, connect on 2.4, connect on 5, connect on 6, and then I'd say, hey, connect on any, right, just free associate, decide client, decide at runtime, and in fact, you can see here, here's 2.4, 240 megabits per second, and here we are at 6 gig. Since I'm only 20 wide, it's kind of running about the same, and here I am on 6 gig connected at a whopping 2.3 gigabits per second, and this is and these numbers are updated live and all that other stuff. So and then lastly, I did carve out another SSID just on 6 gig for this demo. So here's this guy connected on 6 gig, and in fact, if I go in here and look at him, right, he hasn't roamed, he's nice and clean. There's my signal level. Now I'm going to take him and move him away a little bit, right? Signal drops, signal back, put him back closer, right? And so I kind of got fascinated down here with the whole data rate thing, right? And so here I am running along at 1632, and it's kind of interesting. I can actually pull up the MCS table and see it stair step through, right? So in other words, if I put him right by the AP, and I probably shouldn't move him away because now he'll take a little while to get his marbles back. Let's see here. There we go. So now you can see him stair stepping up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take him, and in one arm swing, I'm going to put him down here on this side of the desk, and there he is, you know, plummeting away, and so and that happens fast, right? And in fact, usually what happens, and you can almost see it in action, right? So here's the signal level, right? That dropped right there, and then at that same time, you know, we had some retries. The client decided to start amping down his TX rate. Now I'm going to bring him back and put him here, closer to the AP, and you can see he kind of starts probing. Hey, what can I go to a higher rate? Now I'm going to stick, and we'll slowly see him come back up. In fact, let me get, I thought I had my pings running here. Let me get a little more action going. So I'll blast out a little more background traffic. So now I've got a little more traffic going, and you can see him starting to probe up and start to hunt his way up to a new max TX, but it takes time. You know, whereas you can see the drop is, you know, if you go around a metal post, you wherever you are physically, it drops immediately, right? Sees retries, backs off, sees retries, backs off, you know, just rifling down MCS 11 to MCS 1, literally. I've seen it and I've tracked the rates, but then you can see them kind of stair stepping up, and so pretty cool and interesting. Now let's if I come over here and let me get off the ACES and let me go to my extreme here. There we go. and then I come in here, then let's see here. I should have, let me come in through. Interesting, okay. Why no clients? Let me park on the channel for a second. Let's see here. Okay, so now you can see I've got 3 clients here, and here's my so this guy's monitoring the air. This guy's actually connected, and let me bring him down here. And here is, and so the other thing is, so there's 2 ways to monitor this. You can come in here, and at the same time I can be monitoring it in the air. And so so here is in fact this guy, and if you look at 1632, right? So 1360, 1360. So as we're snagging packets out of the air and pulling the rate and trending those for you. With the we've also got, you can also see here, in fact, so I'll take this guy now, I'll plummet him back down a bit, and then you can see it dropping on both sides. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah. So so that gives you a sense of, here I am monitoring, here's that. So for the purposes of the rest of this, as I show you how the Broadcom and the Intel react, I'm going to I'm in slightly different time scales here, if you're wondering about that. In fact, I'm gonna fix that and make those the same time scales. One's running a 30-second window, one's running a 2-minute window, I believe. But those are all adjustable too, right? I can come in here and do it more. Here's 30 seconds, and then or change this guy, or for that matter, you can double click in to zoom on anything. So pretty good chart interactivity. So now I'm going to, let me get rid of this guy for a second, because you don't really care about him anymore. Let's talk about me monitoring these guys, and one thing I'll say is, see this clipping here? That was actually as I was working on pulling this pitch together, that was a defect I spotted, and in our code, right? And it has to come, and it comes down to the we were calculating the MCS the rate incorrectly, right? So here's the universe of MCS. Then I get down to ham running OFDM, 160 wide. And then so here I am there. I'm 2 streams. I start to carve down a little more. Then I'm 160, and then I'm running 1.6 guard interval. And these are in fact the rates that you'll see us step through if I was watching the trend. Now it turns out we were a little we didn't have quite the right calculation, but then stumbled across Francois's beautiful website, MCS Index, and discovered that we weren't quite handling the guard intervals right. So our math is a little bit off, and I'll apologize for that. That'll be fixed. In fact, I think that got fixed in the overnight build, but I didn't want to take a chance on an update this morning. But that, when you see some clipping here, that's kind of what's going on. So I'll pull this guy back up here. So let's go ahead. Let's come back out one, and let's go out one more, and let me bring this guy up so you can see him a little better. Okay, let's do this. Let's do the Galaxy next. Here's my phone, and then let's go into RF and traffic stats, and I'm going to put him over here next to the AP. You can see the signal level, getting pretty good, and we're sitting here, and we're hitting near maximum, right, for a 2x2 on AX. Then I will take him and plummet him down, and boom, look at that, everybody just starts dropping like a rock. And so and then he kind of tries to find his way, and so then I will bring him back up, and you know, and he'll kind of inch his way up just like the other guy, right? And so maybe the point here is that the, you know, clients are quick to drop rate and slow to refine their max rate. It actually brings into question for me, you know, what really happens with active survey and the validity of that. But so that's that guy, and we'll let him sit there and climb. But he'll eventually hunt his way back. And then one last one, just for completeness, will be my AX210 laptop, and then here we are, and here he is, and so signal strength. I'll get him over here. Let's see what his jumping off point is. Yeah, so he's hammering along at max rates, and then I'll take him and put him on the floor, and boom. There goes the TX rate into the gutter, and then I will probably see some retries to go along with that, and then I'll take him and bring him back up here, and he too will take his time finding his way home. So kind of wanted to share that and just as sort of some client discovery findings, and so after that, and harder to demo, so it'll be a little more static here off slides, is roaming, right? Because we're all just like, how's this roaming gonna work? What's gonna happen? When are you gonna go between bands? So a couple behaviors I've observed on all of these guys is so I can connect right next to my AP, and I'm on channel 197, full strength, full bore. I start to walk away. We get a little twitchy, we roam, we go from the 5 gig band from the 6 gig band to the 5 gig band, channel 48. You can see that when I come back next to the AP, it does not go back to 6 gig. You know, it's just happy to sit there, you know, linked away and humming along, and it will not go back. And then as I go further away on the 6 gig band, it would, now let me say here, it would not switch to 2.4. So from what I've seen roaming, they go from 6 to 5, but they will not go to 2.4 as a behavior of the clients. And so then I got out to the fringe where it basically lost its 5 gig connectivity, and I said, well, all right, well, let me reestablish the connection, and I established it in 2.4, channel 11, 2.4. There's my Extreme AP, and then I came back and parked my client literally right next to the AP, and it never upshifts, right? It's content. And so what I've seen is once you kind of got to be next to the AP to connect at 6 gig in the first place, and then the minute there's any wonkiness, you go down to the RSSI drops, right, which is easy to do because the propagation and the TX powers, but basically the client will just sit there. In fact, I at one point took my client and left it at 2.4, even though this SSID was running all 3 bands, and like at 2 in the morning, it decided to, oh, hey, I'm going to get back to 6 gig, right? It like finally picked its head up to see what was going on. And I've seen the same thing on my, this is from the Android, from the Broadcom, right, where literally here I was connected minus 80 in the 2.4 gig band, 16 megabits TX rate, and then literally right on top of the AP, right, minus 13, waited 10 minutes, right, 46 to 59, just sitting there, will not shift, will not upshift, and so in fact, so I was sitting there really at the bottom, at the bottom, you can sit there at the bottom, and I've actually managed to achieve all these rates and see them happen. So I started down here, I believe, and then 20 megahertz wide, 2x2, and at 16 meg, and then all the way up here to MCS 9, and then but it will not flip over to it will not change bands. So and same thing on Windows, right? And I won't dive into this too much, but same thing at a distance, and then just could not get it to upshift. So I just want to show you I was complete there. Frankly, I find this screen to be incredibly wonky. You see goofy stuff all the time, right? 2.4 gig, but channel 72, huh? You know, but I've seen that throughout, right? There's a lot of channel confusion in all the things I'm playing with, and I'll share a little bit here in a second. But you know, I'm just looking at this other app, and you know, channel 387. What the heck's that, right? So I'd like to, with all due respect to Troy, say that, you know, who said clients are like cats. I think they're more like roaches, right? And APs are like motels, because clients check in, but they don't check out, right? They drop down bands. They won't go down to 2.4. If they're on 2.4, they won't come up. If they go from 6 to 5, they won't go back to 6. And so that's that would be my my addendum to Troy's tweet from literally 2019, just the last WLPC pre-pandemic. So so one last thing I want to kind of dwell on here for a second is just numbering, right? Because numbering is problematic, you know, throughout, right? And you know, you can see, you know, metrics to English conversions and you know, great disasters and things like that. I kind of jokingly say, hey, you know, the fact that they didn't do contiguous numbering on the, you know, on the RJ45 actually literally spawned a good part of the cable test industry, right? And I've walked into customers where I remember, I'll never forget the story with one of my first encounters, like in '95, and went to University of Colorado. They the night before they did a patch cord building, because patch cables were expensive. They got a bunch of students. They literally went 1, 2, 3, 4. And there it was, a 55-gallon barrel filled with patch cables that were no good, right? Because they had a split pair. So numbering, it matters. And in fact, sometimes you think about, you know, how much easier our lives would be if they just would have said, hey, there's 3 channels in 2.4, you know, because this is us looking crowdsourced out of Link Live at the time it was about 16,000 surveys, I believe. And, you know, just see that the percentage of sites where there's something going on, where you see a BSSID and in 2 through 5 or 7 through 8, you know, numbers 25 to 30%. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for channel number. Keep an eye out for channel number stuff, because I've seen it all over the map, and you've got a bunch of problems, right? There's no, you might have seen in ours, we put an E at the end. That was something we decided about, you know, 8 months ago. So when you see a number and an E, you know that it's 6 gig automatically, because the reality is these numbers could be 2.4 or 5. These numbers could be 5 gig. I clipped that there, right? Of course, there's more up here. There's a, you know, a lot of you know, of course, the confusion about the primary being the second swatch rather than the first within the width, right? And then what happens on the 40 megahertz odd widths, and then seeing a fair amount of confusion about when a center channel is used versus a primary. And that's important because it's in information elements, right? These frames are flying through the air. There's channel information in there, and so when you have an R&R, for example, and there's a channel field in there in the information element, and it's suddenly talking in, one vendor decided to, oh, I'm using the center channel rather than the primary channel, right? And I know this because we've dealt with this, right? I've literally got a dozen APUs back here and seen the variance. And so you know, keep an eye out for channel number, because it has bit me more than once. So I, you know, when I sit back and look at 6E, and you know, I don't want to be a Luddite about this, but man, it you know, technology is kind of, 6E Wi-Fi actually just kind of kicks my ass every day, to be honest with you. And there's always a head scratcher, and this is in a fairly controlled environment, so you can only imagine in the wild. But you know, it feels like now, and this is quotes more true than ever, right? Just in humanity right now, but even in technology, it just feels like, man, there's you know, there's so many things in the spec, and so many of them are implemented, and they're implemented so many different ways, and so I guess just a few words of stuff there, and I'll be back hopefully in the spring with more findings, and hopefully found this interesting. Personally, I'm just kind of bracing for preamble puncturing. So anyway, with that, I'll conclude, and somewhat on time even, and thank you, Keith, for allowing me to come in remote. I definitely appreciate it, and thanks to the audience, of course.